The Forgotten Shepherd Boy. In the land of Israel, in the town of Bethlehem, lived a young man named David. He was the youngest of many brothers, and unlike them, he was not considered important. While his older brothers were strong warriors, David spent his days tending sheep in the open fields. But those quiet fields became his secret training ground. There, alone with the sky and his flock, David learned to fight lions and bears that tried to attack his sheep. He had no armor, no army, only a sling, a few stones, and an unshakable faith in God. While others overlooked him, God was preparing him. Musical notes: the king who sang. David was more than a shepherd, he was also a musician and a poet. He played the harp and composed songs of worship that expressed his trust in God. His psalms were born from pain, joy, and hope. Without realizing it, his songs would one day be sung by generations. Crown: the unexpected choice. At that time, Saul was the king of Israel, but he had stopped obeying God. So the prophet Samuel was sent to find a new king. God told him something unforgettable. People look at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. Samuel arrived at David's family home. One by one, the strong older brothers stood before him, but none of them was God's chosen one. Then Samuel asked, "Are these all your sons?" They called for the youngest, the forgotten one, the boy still out in the fields. When David arrived, God said, "This is the one." Samuel anointed him with oil. On that day, a shepherd was marked as the future king. Cross swords: the giant who challenged a nation. Years later, Israel was at war with the Philistines. From the enemy camp stepped out a gigantic warrior named Goliath. He stood nearly 10 feet tall. He wore massive armor, carried an enormous spear, and his voice made the entire army of Israel tremble. Goliath shouted, "Send me a man to fight. If he defeats me, we will become your servants. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." No one dared to face him. Then David arrived, sent by his father to bring food to his brothers. When he heard Goliath's insults, something burned inside him. "Who is this man who dares to defy the army of the living God?" The soldiers laughed at him. He was only a boy. But David did not focus on the size of the enemy. He focused on the greatness of his God. An impossible battlefield. King Saul tried to dress David in armor, but it was far too heavy. David took it off. Instead, he walked to a nearby stream, picked up 5 smooth stones, and took his sling. That was all he needed. The giant marched forward, laughing. David ran toward him. And in what felt like an eternal moment, a single stone flew through the air. It struck Goliath square in the forehead. The giant fell. Silence. Then the Philistine army fled. And a shepherd became a legend. Crown: the rise and the shadow. David was celebrated as a hero, but his success awakened jealousy in King Saul. From that moment on, Saul hunted him. David fled through deserts, caves, and mountains. He lived as a fugitive, hidden, betrayed, and alone. Yet he never raised his hand against Saul, because he respected him as God's anointed king. In those caves, David wrote many of his deepest psalms. They were not songs of victory. They were prayers born in the darkness. Finally crowned king. In time, Saul died in battle. David was crowned king of Israel. His reign brought unity, strength, and expansion. He conquered Jerusalem and made it the capital of the kingdom. Under his leadership, Israel became a powerful nation. But David was not perfect. Broken heart, the king's greatest failure. At one point in his life, David committed a terrible sin. He gave in to temptation, committed adultery with Bathsheba, and then arranged for her husband, Uriah the Hittite, to be placed in battle where he would die. The man who had defeated giants had been defeated by his own heart. When the prophet Nathan confronted him, David did not make excuses. He simply said, "I have sinned against the Lord." That moment revealed the sincerity of his repentance. Of restoration and legacy. Although David faced painful consequences, God did not abandon him. His life continued through family struggles, internal conflicts, wars, and deep trials. Yet he never stopped writing psalms, worshiping God, and seeking Him with a humble and broken heart. According to the Bible, the promised Messiah would one day come from David's family line. Sunrise over mountains, the end of an epic life. David died as an elderly king, having lived as a shepherd, warrior, fugitive, poet, king, and repentant sinner. His story is not about a perfect man. It is about a man who failed, got back up, and never stopped seeking God. Sparkles the lesson of David's story. David's life teaches us powerful truths. God does not choose the strongest, He chooses those with willing hearts. One act of faith can change an entire life. Even after failure, there is always an opportunity to return to God. True greatness is not